Hey guys, I just wanted to show you how I'm procedurally painting bunkers in using CourseForge, Unity, Photoshop, and Substance Painter. I'm going to try to keep peripheral chit-chat down on this one so that you can get a sense of the process. If somebody has any questions about it, you can obviously private message me. But in the end, what's cool about this is if you've ever seen The Glen by Dr. Rob, his course has hand-painted bunkers throughout, which is awesome. It's very time-consuming, and so if you can procedurally paint, which means you don't have to do the hand painting yourself, then in the end it makes it a lot faster. So just to show you, this is kind of a bunker with a little more anatomy in it in Kiowa. There aren't a ton of great bunkers here, but in the end you can see how it turned out pretty nicely. It's a little clunky, but these are kind of my first go-arounds at it. And I'm doing that with Substance Painter. So this is just another bunker. And I'm going to show you how I import it into here, and then we'll procedurally paint. I'm using a university license on this one since I'm an assistant professor at university. So in the end, this is one way to go about doing this, and I'm going to go up to hole number 4 here and show you how it's done. First, we have to get the bunkers out of Unity as a mesh, and so we're going to go to our terrain and go to our cogwheel and turn debug on, and then you can select your bunkers as a mesh. I'm going to select 2 bunkers here next to each other so that I can do them both at the same time. I'm using a program called Mesh Editor to fuse the vertices here. And we got to do it one at a time first here, but I'm going to fuse the vertices on these and bring them into Blender. This is Spline Bunker 140. Select all the vertices and weld. This takes about 30 seconds to weld. If it's a more complicated bunker, it can take a couple minutes. The reason I'm doing the welding is if I weld in Blender, then it messes up the normals. And so I'm using this program to weld. And you might think, well, why are you even bothering doing that? If I'll show you when we unwrap it, if the vertices aren't welded, then it wants to unwrap it as 5 separate objects, which won't work when we go into Substance Painter. Or you're more likely to see seams. So we're going to do this to both of them. This one's Spline 141. We're going to weld that. Alright, I think I'd already done that one, so that was quicker. But now that the vertices are welded, we're going to take both these splines, 140 and 141, and we're going to use Scene OBJ Exporter, and we're going to export the wavefront OBJ. I only need the selected object. I don't need the materials. Export. And then you just have to name it something. So I'm calling it Spline Bunker 4 Green OBJ. And we're going to bring it into Blender. So you're going to make a new file in Blender. And import OBJ. Find that file you just made. It's in world space here, so it's off in no man's land. So if I hit period, it can bring me to it. I'm going to join both these objects because right now they're 2 meshes, and if I try to bring them to the center, it'll stack them on top of each other. So if I pick them with holding shift and left mouse click, now they're 1, and I choose join, now it's recognizing them as 1 mesh. And then I'm going to choose object, transform, geometry to origin, hit period, and now I'm back at the center with these. Tab into object mode, hit 5 to go to ortho, 7 to go from above, U to unwrap. Now this is where I was saying if you do that and you don't weld it, it's going to unwrap these as a bunch of different pieces. It may be okay, but you're going to see how I'm creating a or a mask from this, and so I want to keep it. I want to keep these separate. I'm going to increase my margin so they're not next to each other or as close to each other. Now, I also have a program called Texel Density Checker. It's free on Gumroad. If you Google Texel Density Checker Blender, you'll get this program, and I've got that loaded up here. It shows up in the miscellaneous tab once you load it. The texture size here, you can see these edges are going to be real small. You have to make this a 2048 texture. If you come in here and then you change your set your method to average and change this to 1.2 and set my TD, it's gonna make this texel density even so that across our course all our bunkers look similar, versus if you made one really high res, you'll have one really nice looking bunker and then one kind of blurry. And so I'm doing this. This tends to work well for my course, but and for how it looks when you bring it in. Some larger bunkers will have to be split in terms of how you texture it. There is a way to do that, which I did for that larger bunker. But now I'm going to take each of these and just make sure they fit both into the UV space here. And so I hit C here, and I'm just going to select this one. And then just move that here. Deselect it and then select the other one. And so I'm just trying to cram two of these in to one space. All right. And so now what I want to do before I leave here, we're going to take these UVs and export them. So I'm going to put it in that same folder, and we're going to just call this same thing, Spline Bunker 4 Green OBJ. Actually, Spline Bunker 4 Green UV. And I want to make this all UVs, and I want to make this 2048 by 2048. And then I'm going to export that. Okay, then we're also going to export this FBX file that we're going to bring back into Unity. So we're going to do just do file export here, FBX, and we're going to do that here, and same thing, this Spline Bunker 4 Green. All right, and now we're going to take this bunker into Substance. So let me save this other one here. This was actually 4 Fairway, saved in the wrong spot. Oh well. But let's do a new one. So in Substance, I'm going to choose a new file here, and I've got it set for Unity 5. And all I'm doing is picking my my bunker mesh here, and it's going to import that mesh that I just made, the two bunkers. And this is a little different if you're used to 3D Studio Max. You hold down Alt and left click to move around. That's a sort of, I think, Maya in 3D Studio Max sort of movement here. So once I bring it in, you go to your texture set and you bake mesh maps, and you bake all your texture sets. You'll get a few errors. And now I'm going to go into Photoshop while it's working on that. And we're going to create a mask. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open that UV map that we made, or that we exported, and bring that in. So this was our UVs, and I'm going to create a layer and put it underneath here and paint it black. So get your paint bucket and fill that in black. And then I'm going to come back to the UV layer here in my selection tool and select the outside and then select inverse. And then what I'm going to do is make another layer, and we're going to do white, and we're going to make a stroke of 8 on it. And it's running down the center, so it's really just going to be almost a 4-pixel stroke there. And then we're going to hide the UV. So you'll have to go back and watch that if you need to. And then we're going to save this as, and we're just going to save it as what it says there. We're going to bring this into Substance. So what this does is this has made a mask for me. So let's do File, Import Resources, Add Resource, and we're just going to bring in that Photoshop mask we just made. And you choose this as a texture, and you're going to import it to the current session and import. And so now I've got this here, and it's this foregreen UV. Now I'll show you what I've done is I have made a bunker texture that is composed of many layers, and it's just easier than Photoshop. This program is so cool if you understand Photoshop. If you go to my layers here, I made a mistake here real quick, so we're going to have to jump back in. You see how I've got that gray banding going on around here? When I was in Blender, we needed to get rid of the material. It's bringing in 2 textures, and what you want to do is only have 1 texture. So if you tab out here, and I'm going to delete the perfect parallel textures, create a new one that I'm going to just call Text 1. You're going to see what happens here, but tab in, it's already assigned because it's the only one. But now I'm going to just re-export the FBX. So tab out here, re-export the FBX, and just overwrite the one that you just had there. Selected objects, experimental plot. I don't think I did that before either. And now if I come back into Substance Painter, we'll do it, reload it. So new file, select, bring that in. You're going to see here, see how there's 2 textures on the right here on the texture set list? It's going to come in with just the 1. And so I've got that there. Now you got to bake your mesh maps. And then and now I can dump this texture on top of it. Now you're going to see it basically gets us there, except it's not painted exactly right. And the problem is it's that whole masking. So this is painting based on layers that I've built, but it's all based on the shape of your mask. So this mask is a different, this was my Bunker 46 mask. So you got to bring in that other one we just made, which was that foregreen. And if I start changing my fill layer, there's the bunker mask here. If I just change all these, now unfortunately there's about 13 of these, and you just go and change them all. This is the annoying part to this process, but I can give you this material and let you tweak to your heart's content. And in the end, the only thing you have to do is find these fill layers and change the mask. And you're going to see as I do this, the bunker's going to start taking shape up there. So I'm 30 seconds away here from being done painting these. I'm guessing Rob might tell you he could hand paint it faster than this. Maybe he can. Hand painting, it drives me nuts. I just don't like the lag in Unity. Alright, so now I'm done. So you see, basically, I didn't do anything other than drop that mesh or that mask that I made in Photoshop. So now let's export this. So now we're going to get rid of, export these textures. And we're going to pick that folder that I was in, which was Kiowa, hole 4, the green. Select that folder and let it export. I'm exporting these as 2048 texture. And now we'll come back into Unity, and this is importing everything. So this is hole 4. Let's create a new folder to keep some organization and call this 4 green. And you could just go to the folder here and just bring everything in here. You don't need everything. I'm just doing this for speed instead of importing things independently. And then I'll delete a few things here that we don't need, I guess. You don't need this. The normal and the metallic are not applicable. But so now if we look here, this spline bunker 4 green, unfortunately I brought in the FBX and the OBJ. But I'm going to show you how we're going to create a material here. But first let's go to this spline bunker 4 green and import it how we do all our imports. We're going to create collider from model material, apply, and then let's go and edit our material. That's not the one I want. Let's see, it's got to have just the one material. Okay, it does. This is the spline 140 with text 1. That's correct. You're going to want to make this physics material on this sand so that it reacts correctly in the game. And then you're going to turn the cast shadows off on it. You still want it to receive shadows. And then, I don't know where its material went, but I'm just going to create a material. Let me pause this for just a second. Sorry, create a material here. I don't know if I did that already. And let's just call this 4 green. And then it's just going to be a legacy shader bump diffuse. And you're going to put the bunker on it. And it's just going to be tiled once. I'm going to drag this onto the bunkers. And then my normal, I'm using like a just some sort of sand normal that I've found on the internet at some point in time, and I tile it 6 times. And I'll show you zoom in on that. It doesn't really show in game that much, but you can see some. It's just sort of pebbly. And so there's my hand painted bunker. Now the only thing we got to do is make these hide and go away. The coarse forge ones. So you come up here, and as long as there's not a bunker island in it, there's another trick for bunker islands. But if you go to the hierarchy, if there's not a, you can't have one of these extra boxes for it because you're going to hide everything else in the folder basically. So if it's an individual bunker like these are without bunker islands, then you can just untick this and it's going to hide it. And now they're hidden. They're still there, so you can come back and generate them later. If you actually, I think if you calculate the mesh again from the outside, it will show back up again, but I'm not going to do that. And now we can put these in the right spot. And I do that with V. If you hold down V, it's a vertex select mode that you can, sorry, I don't have that selected. There we go. Select your object and then hold down V. Or actually, you see that, holding down V, and then I'm left mouse clicking and dragging into place. Now we got to zoom in to make sure it's snug. See how it's not? If you hold down Alt, and then hold down Alt, and then right mouse click, It'll allow you to zoom in close. It's a little more fine than the mouse wheel, so hold down Alt, right mouse, zoom in, and then hold down V and drag that snug. And then I always go back here, make sure we're good. The spline is fine, the shadows are off, and we're sand. And there you go.